Do I have a, yeah. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me? Yes, good. Dylan, fantastic. I 100% agree with you. And really, first of all, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me and actually setting up such a wonderful platform to discuss the tea. I suppose all of us sitting in this room, directly or indirectly, are the guardian of the tea bush. That's a reality. Sometimes we don't want to face it, sometimes we need to face it. Let's go. Where do I point? Oh, yeah? Okay. The question is, if one day a tea bush going to speak to you, and what the tea bush is going to tell you? It's going to say, you drink tea in your happy times and sad times, and when you're ill and when you're healthy. It warms you when you're cold, it cools you when you're hot. Tea moment helps family gathering and enjoyment with the friends. It helps you to start your day, energizes you, and at the end of the day, tea is your companion. It's that personal companionship that you have got with your tea and your cup of tea. Tea bush continues to say, my bush doesn't need much attention. Clouds bring me rain, ground gives me nourishment, and the soil and everything around me is taken care of. But I have one question for you. I wonder, why couldn't you do a bit more to look after the people who take care of me all these years? All these years, the people who come and take care of me in the rain, in a hot sunny day, etc. Couldn't you do more? The answer is, I do not know. What is going to be your answer? I think collectively is a hard question to answer. And maybe we'll go to the, okay. Let us see the magnitude of this subject. The reality check, if you do a bit of a reality check, is the tea is far too cheap. The price of tea hasn't gone up in line with energy. It hasn't gone up with all other expenses, transport, traveling, everything. It's remained very stagnant, and there is a massive oversupply. And the current business model, economical model, which really encourages the competitions between the supermarkets and between the brands, maybe for the purpose of looking after the consumer, is not going to give it much chance to these tea workers and everybody who works to take care of the bush. And this is a reality, and I can't really say, and I know from manufacturer, from tea estates, and every element of going back to the tea workers, there is not enough money on the chain to give around. So what do we do? You know, there are a number of tea factories gets closed. Why? Because of energy prices, etc., or not enough consumers. So we really need new champion for this. And the champion would be our collective effort, but really the true champion needs to be final consumer. So effectively what we are saying, let's leapfrog this subject and go to the final consumer and ask them to become our true champion. Okay, let's start a bit. Let's talk about living wage. You wonder why I speak about living wage. Because ultimately, from this point that we are, or the tea workers are working, they need to get to incremental level to the next station. That is being satisfied the living wage. The living wage definition, for us at least, is a wage received for a standard work week by workers in particular place sufficient to afford a decent standard of living for the family that they have. And there's a whole institute working out what should be that living wage, and that's actually changes from country to country. And when you apply this, there is a living wage gap of 50% in Assam. Kenya is about 25, Malawi is about 35, and Sri Lanka 25, 35. These are estimates, but the reality is there is a gap. And we need to get our really workers into this step. But there's a whole array of, I suppose, block in front of us. And the discussion today is, can we just jump over it and go to the final consumer? Let's see. I thought, before I dive into this, I need to see the magnitude of it. Because generally, being an engineer from background and ended up in the tea business and marketing, I hate to just not be pragmatic on the subject. So when I tried to look at this magnitude, I had to see what is actually, how much the tea prices on the shelf needs to go up to justify being able to pay living wage. So I did the numbers. It's a whole rabbit hole in there, so I'll just give you the headlines. The headlines is the amount of green leaves the workers pick up per day. It could be from 20 to 40, depending on Sri Lanka or Kenya. They're using a hand tools or just pick by hand. And they have about 4 to 5 kilograms of black tea they pick. So if we actually apply this philosophy to a worldwide tea bag blends, because I know this discussion is hard to do on the loose tea, but on the tea bag you can possibly do it. So if you have a tea bag blend, which is 1/3 from Sri Lanka, 1/3 from India, and 1/3 from, say, East Africa, Kenya, typical English breakfast blends. So in order to be able to get to that gap, you need about 75 cents per kilo of the tea. So that means 75 cents needs to be, we are short of 75 cents per kilo. But when you actually take that 75 to the shelf prices, there is an element of 3.5 times more. So it becomes $2.6 per kilo. The shelf prices has to go up in order to be able to afford living wage. Okay, that maybe sounds, wow, not possible. Hang on. But actually, one of the most popular products in the UK, in the world, is will be 20 aluminium, which got only 40 grams of tea. Another big product, SKU, is 100 tea bags, which only got 200 grams. So if we apply the maths, we can challenge it later, but if you apply the whole maths, you have got only 10% price increase. So if we were allowed to increase prices by 10%, and that 10%, and everybody could have their margins, but that 10% uplift would be rippled down the line, would allow workers to have living wage. The reality is none of us can, in the tea business, can claim sustainable business when you have a migration out of the tea estates. What's the point? We are into this business, and we need to look at this from humanity subject as well as a commercial subject. You know, everybody, you need to have, this is, I do believe, is the right time to have this conversation. Okay, let's go forward a bit more. The challenge is how to communicate and convince a final consumer to purchase a product which is priced higher but meets the living wage criteria. In here, we have said that let us see, what we need to do is actually touch that feeling of the consumer, the kindness to shine through. And when they realize the cup of tea, the choice of tea they want to buy, is actually the people around it, people who produced it, is having the living wage, it makes them feel good. So the question is, how can we do this? Let us see what happened in our world. In the last 10 years, you've seen everything about global warming, so many discussions. The world has come together, and trillions of dollars have been spent or being spent in order to control the global warming. And you can see it all around you. So collaborative work out of the mind thing and mindset change can make this thing happen. The other thing, concept of recycling. When I entered this business, when I joined the business rather, at that time everything was about virgin board, and for printing. Now everything is about recycling. The choice of the consumer nowadays is recyclable PET, recyclable whatever. And when you think about recyclable PET, that means somebody else previously have been using possibly similar material or similar bottle. But there still is a choice today. And we can talk about blood diamond, etc. And slavery on the chocolate being kicked off. So the question is, having a mindset change and the consumer, bringing the consumer on board can make the difference. So this is a proposal which is a planting a seed proposal. So I know this is, for me, is a start of a journey which may take 5, 10 years. In the proposal, the objective actually being how to communicate and convince the consumer to purchase a product which is priced higher and meets the living wage criteria. And actually the vision would be if there's some kind of indicator on the pack so that they can pick up, okay, it's recyclable, okay, it's actually living wage criteria, which is important. And they say, okay, I would prefer to pay a bit more and buy a living wage product. I don't want to feel bad. I want to enjoy the movie I'm going to watch. So that would be the choice. Having symbol indicates a product satisfies living wage. And the way the whole thing is assessed is based on trust. Nobody got extra money to go and do overheads and control and audit, etc. Once the money, once the uplift, once the price is higher, similar to the organic products, that increase, delta extra would be passed on to the manufacturer, which gradually has to be passed on to the tea estate, and which passed on to the tea workers. So this way, based on trust, and you all have traveled Europe, and you can see in this European supermarket, certainly in England, most of the checkout is self-checkout. So the trust is the essence between all of us, and I have no doubt most of the people who run the tea estates are honorable people. They are decent. They wouldn't be in that business. This is not a quick box business, but they are out of pocket. Hence, giving a bit more to them, it helps. Lastly, effectively, this is a symbol which I just kind of had to find on the internet to be able to describe. And such a symbol can be developed and put at the bottom of the pack, as you can see, bottom right-hand side, along with all other symbols that nowadays we have to do. So, next action plan subject will be subject to your helps. We need a collaborative, we need a group of people to work, a working group. We need to bring in focus on the Western Europe and the Northern Europe and see whether this works, possibly USA, and whether we can push consumer towards paying a bit more. Once the system is set up, we need a group of people from a consumer group, from the labor and human rights group, tea producers, marketing, and PR companies. Once system is set up and established, the marketeers can use soft pressure to encourage consumers' kindness to shine through by purchasing this product. We also need friendly supermarkets. I know the word supermarket always frightens everybody, it's true, but there are also some of them who are not happy and they want to be different. Okay, it's not only Tesco picking fight on with Lidl, there are people, other companies who may be able to come on board and work with us to try to support the idea. Because effectively, reality is supporting living wage is not supporting is so embarrassing. They have to support it. How else? We cannot consider ourselves as a decent human with morality if we cannot care about the guy out there, 1,000 miles away, who cannot even get enough money for the decent living. So, what is Ahmadi plan? We think once this is established, we can work with the market and we can try to encourage our consumers to try to convince the supermarket, and through the social media, to actually create some kind of a snowball effect. I hope if everything goes well, maybe in 5 years' time, 8 years' time, whatever, we can drop this symbol so that the standard is met, that any product coming should have a living wage. Otherwise, we won't want to buy it. Lastly, so that you know what Ahmadi's plan is, you know us, we already move into this journey. We have already started digital payment to some selected testing in some selected gardens in Assam, in Kenya. Now we're working on Sri Lanka. And I can tell you it's quite enjoyable. It's nice to do it. So the mechanism is there. So at the end of all these things, we would be able to make the difference to our beloved, humble Tibush. Thanks very much.